Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm diving into what's probably my fanciest build yet, without going all in on custom water-cooled PCs that is. This one's got some major upgrades from what I usually do, and I'm excited to see if the investment actually pays off in performance. So let's get right into it. First up, we're unboxing the most expensive all-in-one cooler I've ever added to a PC, the new Corsair iQ Link H100i RGB, at a whopping £180. And if you want the LCD module, that'll be another £85 on top. Now, I usually stick to AIOs under £100, so this is definitely pushing the budget. And as I start unboxing, I'm already noticing that everything, and I mean everything, is proprietary. Is it worth it? Well, we'll find out soon enough. And now onto the rest of the hardware. I'm taking everything off from my trusty test rig, which will become the base for today's build. What we have here is an RTX 3080 10GB Founders Edition sitting atop an MSI B650 motherboard driven by a Ryzen 7 7700 and 32GB of Corsair DDR5 RAM, all powered by Corsair RM850 PSU. Alright, I could spend all day comparing AM4 to AM5 or Intel's LGA 1700 and the new 1851, but here's the bottom line. Right now, AM5 is the only configuration I'd recommend. I mean, sure, AM4 is way more affordable and the 5700 X3D is a gaming powerhouse, but AM4 is an 8-year-old platform with limited future support, so it's basically a dead end. Ignoring Intel's very high end when all the shenanigans with parts dying, the mid-range chips are great, but when you factor in the price, just doesn't make that much sense. Take my Ryzen 7 7700 for example. I got it brand new for £148. Compare that to a used Intel 13700 which cost at least £220, and you can clearly see why I chose AMD. Plus, with AM5 you're all set with upgrade options until at least 2027, while Intel's current line has a much shorter upgrade path. Now, I know this might sound like AMD fanboy talk, but believe me, it's not. I was really hoping Intel's Core Ultra would blow me away, especially with efficiency improvements, but it just didn't deliver. Hopefully next year's lineup will change things up, but for now I'm sticking with my recommendation. For storage, I'm upgrading to a 2TB NVMe drive, and funny enough, it's an Intel. As for the case, I'm trying out the Montec XR, which has a fishbowl design with great cable management and 3 pre-installed ARGB fans. It's honestly incredibly value for the price. Two things with the setup though. First, the AIO wouldn't fit at the top because the fan cables got in the way. And second, the software control had me pulling my hair out. But after a full day of troubleshooting, I finally ditched iQ for fan control and signal RGB. For whatever reason, either Corsair or MSI deprecated the MSI extension on iQ, at least for B650 motherboards, so there is no way you can have one application for everything. So now, fan control keeps things cool, and signal RGB, while not open source, has a solid free tier. In the end, one app for all of the RGB and one for fan control, absolute win. With the GPU now installed, it's time for benchmarks. And starting with Heaven, I'm going for the out-of-the-box experience. No OC, just PBO and XMP enabled. Usually I tweak settings to keep noise down, but here we're running stock. And wow, the 3080 here is outperforming my last one by a mile and then some. Big shout out to whoever repadded and repasted it before I got my hands on it. Just a note, everything's captured internally, so results might be 2 to 5% lower than without Shadowplay. Moving to 3D Mark, the stress test was a breeze. I thought about wiping my drive for a perfect score, but honestly, who has a spotless drive? Most gamer setups are even messier than mine, and on top of everything, we still scored really well in Speedway. Now Rocket League. It's basically a guaranteed 400 plus FPS on a high-end rig like this, even at 1440p. So yeah, smooth as ever. Switching over to Fortnite at 2K epic settings, we got 79 FPS on average. No complaints here. I know many people would turn the settings down, but I'm here for the visuals, so epic mode it is. Skipping Horizon Zero Dawn for the first time ever and jumping in Forbidden West, which is more current for today's builds. We're hitting 130 FPS on average, though I'll admit there were some frame time hiccups. VSync at 120Hz should smooth it out. Funny story, I actually planned to play this on my 4090, but waited so long I sold it. Now I'm back on a 3080, so life, huh? Next up, Black Myth Wukong, the newest title in my benchmark roster. Even with low tracing and everything else set to high, it pushed this 3080 to 44 FPS at 1440p. Doesn't sound great, but ditch the RT reflections and you can jump to over 80 FPS. Personally, I am really keen to have RT stuff on, so I would probably just bump up the DLSS to get over 60 FPS. Going to the other end of the spectrum from brand new to truly the first ever playable title to include ray tracing, Control. And after averaging FPS from 3 runs, I realized I hadn't maxed out the settings. So expect around 90 to 120 FPS depending on the scene, with DLSS enabled and set up properly. Far Cry 6 is infamous for being CPU intensive, but it played well with the 7700, averaging 106 FPS. With the 3D V-Cache CPU, it might have performed even better, but overall a very solid experience. In Assassin's Creed Mirage, we're hitting an average of 96 FPS and it looks gorgeous. It's refreshing to see the series return to form, avoiding the bloat of recent entries. Can't forget Shadow of the Tomb Raider, an older title, but it's always in my roster. It averaged 170 FPS with DLSS set to quality. It might be outdated, but it still pushes GPUs to their limits. And finally Cyberpunk 2077. With ultra ray tracing, we're averaging just under 75 FPS. This is the way I played my way through the game the first time and I enjoyed every minute of it. And that's it. Short, sweet and packed with a lot of performance. Until next time, don't forget to like and subscribe for more builds and benchmarks. See yas!